In 1970, McDonnell Douglas had received a request from American Airlines to design a wide-body aircraft smaller than the 747, but it needed to have the same range. McDonnell Douglas spent a lot of time designing the aircraft American Airlines was looking for, and finally in 1970, they came up with the DC-10, a gigantic trijet slightly smaller than the 747, but that could travel the same distance, more than 10,000 kilometers. The DC-10 made its first flight in 1970, and 1 year later it was finally put onto the aircraft market. It was a smashing success. Many airlines that didn't have the money for the jumbo jet decided to choose for the DC-10. It seemed as if the DC-10 was unstoppable, and McDonnell Douglas was raking in money faster than they had ever done before. But then in 1972, just 1 year after the aircraft was put into commercial service, disaster struck. American Airlines Flight 96 on McDonnell Douglas DC-10, this was the first version of the DC-10, had its left rear cargo door blow open in mid-flight, causing the floor above the cargo door to collapse. The hydraulic cables that connected the pilot's yoke to the elevators and the rudder, which were right under the floor, snapped, causing the pilots to lose a lot of control on the elevators and the rudder. Miraculously, the cables were still functioning a bit, making the pilots able to still have a bit of control over the elevators and the rudder. But because of the captain's skill, they were able to put the plane back onto the ground. The NTSB started investigating the accident and discovered that because of a design flaw, sometimes the locking pins of the DC-10's cargo door wouldn't close properly. The NTSB made the recommendation to McDonnell Douglas to improve the locking system to prevent an accident like this from ever happening again. But 2 years later, in 1974, the exact same thing happened over Paris. Turkish Airlines Flight 981 had taken off from Istanbul on a flight to London. The aircraft had made a stopover in Paris. The aircraft was taking off from Paris to continue the flight to London. But then, shortly after takeoff, the plane's cargo door also blew out, just like Flight 96. But instead of Flight 96, where the pilots did have a bit of control over the elevators and the rudder, the pilots of the Turkish Airlines plane lost complete control, causing the plane to nosedive straight into the ground. All the 346 passengers on Flight 981 were killed, and at the time it was even the worst plane crash in aviation history. The NTSB once again investigated the accident and discovered that McDonnell Douglas hadn't made the changes that they were recommended to do. Finally, McDonnell Douglas made the right changes. And after the changes were made, an accident in which the cargo door of the DC-10 blew out never happened again. But that wasn't the end of the DC-10's troubled history. In 1979, American Airlines Flight 191, a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, still the first version of the DC-10, was hurtling down the runway at Chicago O'Hare. As the nose of the plane lifted up, the left engine suddenly broke off. As the engine broke off, it severely damaged the hydraulic control system, causing the slats on the left wing to retract. The slats are devices that are extended during takeoff in order to give the plane lift. Without them, the plane isn't able to climb. With the slats only being retracted on the left wing, the plane rolled to the left and crashed into the ground. The NTSB started investigating the accident, they discovered that improper maintenance had caused the bulk, keeping the pylon attached to the wing, to crack. During every flight, the crack got worse, causing the engine to finally break off on that fateful day. So the problem wasn't caused by the DC-10 itself. But the NTSB did recommend a few changes that would make the plane safer. First of all, the hydraulic control system was redesigned so that when it was damaged, the pilots would still have enough control to keep the plane flying. With all these changes made, the DC-10 eventually became one of the safest airplanes in the world. McDonnell Douglas had designed multiple versions of the DC-10. The first version, of course, was the DC-10-10, which could carry about 300 passengers and had a range of more than 10,000 kilometers. The second version was the DC-10-30, its first customers being Swissair and KLM. This aircraft could carry more than 315 passengers and had a range of more than 11,000 kilometers. The final version, the DC-1040, could also carry 315 passengers, but had a range of nearly 12,000 kilometers. And that was the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.